Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokémon card collecting podcast, featuring David Person, owner of the world's most complete English Pokémon card collection, and Dan Norton, a longtime collector with all the knowledge behind the cards.
Dan, fancy meeting you here again. This is becoming an all too often problem, if not a meeting, if not a gathering, small group together. It's nice to see you. Something special happened to me today, Dan, and I do want to point it out, and it's a surprise. The person I'm going to inform right now, because he doesn't know, I'm going to see if I can show this on the screen. Can you see this at all, Dan, what it is?
It's some sort of elephant. It's like a golden elephant with a coloured like shawl thing over its back. It looks like some
Yes, it
sort of
is.
ornament.
Yes, it is. Thank you for saying, Dan. So I got a gift from not the stalking gal, but from one of our best fans. He's a little on the stalking side, but we love him to death, Mr. Stephen Kassoon. And he got me that gift of this prestigious golden elephant that is basically been blessed by his ashram, which is, I guess, a place of trends, meditative energy, and positive transformation, and all that kind of things. And Stephen is kind of a yogi, someone that's really reflective of his thinking and stuff, and that's why we get so many comments on videos and stuff. But he's been following us since the beginning, and I just want to thank him personally. I told him today that I wasn't able to pick it up from the post office so that I could announce it on a video, and he waits excitedly for our videos every day or week or month. So he'll be surprised to see that. And I just wanted to thank him. I don't get too many gifts from anybody. I've had a handful, and I've acknowledged those people, but this was special that someone would take the time and effort to think of me in this capacity. So thank you, sir, very much. Stan, have you got anything from anybody that admires you recently, my friend?
I've bought stuff from people. I haven't. I don't think I've had any gifts in a while. That's actually not true. An artist I really like, I bought some stuff from him, and he threw in some freebies and stuff. So it was kind of a gift. Kind of, I was buying stuff anyway, but he threw in some nice stuff when I bought from him last time.
Oh, well, that's very nice. That's good. Though, it's just nice to be. It's nice to be recognized every once in a while, and I promise Stephen that I will stick it on a white cloth as instructed, and I will let it bring me positive luck, as I don't let anyone come near it or touch it or anything.
Hopefully, it gets you a world's pass.
Yes, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Because that hasn't happened yet. Congratulations on yours. Every video we start with, hey, congratulations, Dan got something, Uncle Dave didn't get nothing. So it's fine. I may have to find an employee at Worlds to pay to get me in a back door or something. So if you know anybody working this year in Anaheim and they need a couple of bucks, I can gift them a couple of bucks, and maybe they can gift me the opening of a back door.
I mean, they don't know yet.
I know, Dan. You gotta go with Dan. You're living in the sense of reality, and I'm in some sick fantasy world, and the two shall never pass. Okay, they don't
believe
mix,
me. I know.
Just give. Dan, it's nice. Okay, I've been thinking a lot this last 24 hours, Dan, about a topic. Okay, and I discuss it all the time. And I'm sorry for you guys. I'm going to say this out loud for the people that are watching that actually do follow us and care about us. Like, why does Uncle Dave keep going over that? Can he just get over it? No, I can't. Okay. Uncle Dave has had a pretty successful darn life. I think most of you guys know that in a lot of different ways. Okay. And when you achieve and you appreciate success in whatever form that is, you don't want to run away from that. You want to continue to do that. You don't want to slip from the top of the mountain, so to speak. And so when we do these podcasts and when we do these videos and we don't get any views at all, and I'm looking at every single other influencer, I went through the entirety of the internet. And the only people, there's 2 out of 2,475 Pokemon YouTubers who get less views than Dan. Okay? 2. So you're like, what's going on? What is happening? There has to be a reason. I have to understand it. It's really not Dan. I mean, the guy's very good looking. He's a smart guy. He's articulate. He's not from the country. He's got no political motivations. Nobody's chasing him down from any government agencies. So what is that about? And I start thinking about it more and more and trying to figure it out. And I think, are we not informative enough? Are we not entertaining enough? Are we not exaggerative enough? Do we not do the right kind of clickbaits? And why do I care? Well, I told you why I care, because, it's time. I do this for Dan. I try to raise his watch numbers, but I am still a human being who appreciates and would like to have success in the endeavor. And what I've realized is Dan and I aren't relevant anymore. We're not relevant. That's the reality. I am completely irrelevant. at a whopping soon to be 64 years old. And let me talk about relevance for just a minute, okay? I went to a concert last night, a music concert, and I saw a group called the Righteous Brothers. Anybody over the age of 60 out there will know it. Nobody out there's watching it. It's over the age of 60, which makes me laugh, and I have to laugh. And the head of that group, Bill Medley, is still alive. His partner died 20 some years ago. He put a new partner in about 10 years ago, and they continued on. Do you know that Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers, one of the most famous groups in rock and roll history, is 84 years old? And I watched him perform on stage, and it was an enjoyable experience. He forgot some of the words, not to the songs, but to some of the lines he was supposed to say. We were all laughing about it. It was a fairly intimate audience at a casino kind of auditorium in Vegas. And I thought as I watched him, he wasn't the same old Bill Medley people would have known, and nothing like that. Because at 84 years, performing for over 60 years with people like Dean Martin and Elvis and all these people, just not the same person. The voice wasn't the same or anything else. And I ended up talking to his daughter afterwards, an amazing singer named McKenna Medley. She is incredible. And I said, "Is your dad ever going to stop?" And she said, no, he really won't. He won't stop. It's just kind of in him. And the adoration and the adulation and all the things that have brought him those kind of fans through the years in that intimate setting, sitting there last night, they were watching and still enjoying his situation. But what percentage of the population was watching it relative to someone like a Taylor Swift or a Dua Lipa or somebody else out there? Very, very small number. He's trying to be relevant, but he's not relevant. And so here's what's happening. I'm going to translate this to where we stand in the hobby today.
Thank God, because I didn't know where that was going.
No, it is. It's going to go because I want your input, Dan. And today I'm going to talk a little slower so you can talk more. But I want to actually respond to some of your thoughts on this. Where is Pokemon's history going? Well, not history. Where is the future of Pokemon going? Because no one is collecting sets anymore. The scalper thing is real. People are jumping in and they're going to jump out when they don't have this chance to make all this money. They're not interested in collecting at all. They're interested in profiting, monetizing an ability to get product at a cheaper place and put it higher out there. It's changing the narrative in the hobby to a great deal of frustration. If you listen to influencers out there today, it is crazy. My kids think everything is rigged. So they think that everybody does something so somebody else can get a benefit from it. And it's not how it's supposed to be. I don't feel it is that way. But if you looked at the influencers out there today that I was watching criticizing each other one after another, this one shouldn't have said this about this one. I can't believe this one is still calling out scalpers, but still opening stuff on their channel at inflated prices, on and on. And these views of these videos, 18,000, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. So this is what everybody's concerned with. And it's interesting to know if they're doing it to hype up the views one amongst the other, to call them out so it raises their profiles and channels. Yes. Or is it real? I tend to think everything is real. My kids don't. But at the end of the day, that's what everybody cares about. Somebody brand new can just be talking about, is the hype real? And that can be the headline and they're going to have 1,000 views. And Dan and I are old school talking about collecting in Pokemon. Somebody sent me a message today and said, I have an Obsidian Flames. I'm one card away from a master set. That's like remarkable. Actual master set, remarkable, because no one does that anymore. So when we think about where we are today, and I always say no one's going to go back in time. Diamond and Pearl era is gone. Black and White era is gone. Vintage is kind of gone. We keep coming new set to new set. If there are new collectors coming in and they're actually going to collect, and it's going to get cheaper again because the Pokemon produces enough stuff, and the scalpers finally get out of this mess in a year or two, and now people settle down and collect, most of the times you figure they're going to start currently before they go back. They have more of an enhancement, more of an interest in what's there today. And I really don't know. I just don't know what it means. Guys like Dan and I, guys like Craig, guys like this gentleman that talked to me today, they are, I guess, the few and far between legitimate collectors. But what happens between the gap of all those years of when we all started and today? And what is the history of Pokemon going to look like? And I'm going to leave it to Dan here now, but Dan's going to, I know what he'll talk about, because he'll start with something to do with the game. He's going to talk about the game. That's where he always goes. He goes, Pokemon is a thing about a game and people playing. But I wonder at the end of the day, is that enough to carry on the future? And what do all the collectors and all of the value of whatever they have, we never collected for value, but what does that mean for the future of this hobby?
There's a lot of people also not collecting for value. You're right in that very few people are collecting sets now. It's few and far between people who are collecting sets, but that's to do with the size of the sets now and, how many chase cards and stuff there are. So if someone's coming into it, more likely if someone is wanting to collect sets, they're not collecting every set. Like you said, the person there with Obsidian Flames, they're going to pick one set that they like, and they're going to focus on that because there is just too much coming out to keep up with sets. It just, unless you have a very large amount of money behind you, it just can't be done. For that reason, that's why a lot of people will collect their favorite Pokemon instead, or they'll collect a couple of pieces of nice art from the sets, or people will collect from one artist. So I don't think the fact that no one is collecting sets is indicative of the overall collecting going down. It's just one type of collecting that has fallen off, and that is because of, it's not even just the increased perceived value of the cards, it's the reason that these cards are so valuable is because of the rarity. If you think back to, we talked about, Diamond and Pearl era, back then, a case is probably going to get you a full set. Diamond and Pearl, the base set, had 3 level X's as the chase cards. If you were collecting back then, those cards were $20 each. And those were the chase cards of the set because they were relatively easy to pull. I mean, no one was opening 3,000 packs or anything in one go, but people had them. These cards were out there. I remember when the first set that came out right after I got back into it was Majestic Dawn. And I remember the first weekend, I pulled 2 Glaceon level X, just from loose packs, and I sold one, and it was £26, so at the time, probably about $40. And that was one of the biggest cards of the set.
Now, Dan, wait a minute. Why do you acknowledge the weight of the card? Why? I'm not aware of any Pokemon card being 26 pounds. Why would that card be so heavy?
Okay, we'll move on from that, David. You remember that I lived in England at this time.
Oh, you're talking like that currency thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, that English currency. Yeah. So, at the time, even, I remember Rising Rivals coming out. Rising Rivals had more level X's, I think, than any set before it. It had 9 level X's, so from a case, you're probably opening about 1 of each level X, because you were getting a couple per box. There was a card in there called Luxray GL level X. Every single deck that was being played at that time was playing 1 or 2 copies of Luxray. It was the best card, just period. It was so good. It was so versatile in basically every deck. There was maybe 1 or 2 fringe decks didn't play it, but everyone who could get one was playing it. And it was $50. And I remember people at the time saying, what, $50 for one card? But if you want to collect a set, one of your 9 level X's is $50. The rest are about $20 each. Now, Prismatic Evolutions, the Umbreon is $1,500. The other evolutions are $300 to $400, maybe $500 or $600 for some of them each. Even a regular set, we look at Journey Together. Yeah, it just came out, but week 1 of release, and that Luxray price, by the way, that was week 1 of release, was that Luxray price, $50. Clefairy in Journey Together, $450. Zoroark and Salamence, $250 each. The other 3 SIRs, $100, $150 a piece. The reason no one's collecting sets is just because it's so much harder to pull these chase cards, which makes them so much more expensive. And that's why people are going to these other types of collecting, whether they focus on just one set and say, I'm going to spend a couple of years building this set up, or they say, I'm going to focus on a Pokemon or an artist. Because if you give yourself the time, you can build a set. But trying to do it in the 3-month window before the next set comes out is just not possible for most people. And when you say I'm going to talk about the game, yeah, I think a successful game is enough to keep it going, to keep the card game going, or keep the cards in production. And Pokemon themselves have said in the past about 60% of their sales are children in Walmart or Target who, that's why the blister packs are at this level, they're down here, so a kid sees it. They've said before that was at the peak about 60% of their sales where kids who are never going to collect, never going to play the game, they're just going to pick a random pack, and that's something that Pokemon has over any other card game. But if we're talking about the history of, or the future of Pokemon, Pokemon doesn't need the card game. Pokemon has the video game. The card game is a tiny part of Pokemon's franchise overall. The video game is huge. The anime is huge. Other types of collectibles are huge. Pokemon is fine. It's not going anywhere.
You know, when you talk about I actually don't, I didn't see it that way. And it's interesting when you say it that way, because we in the hobby here on the TCG side, trading card side, that's what we see, right? That's what we're in tune to. That's where all this gossip and daily hype and frustration and scalping is in tune with. And it isn't, it'll never will be the video game, right? Because it's not like we can't get the video game and somebody's trying to stand in line for a video game, unless it might be the start of a new one or something. But so ultimately, when you say that at the end, it's a very small part. I always think about it the other way. I think intuitively it would be the largest part, because it's the one getting all of the hype and publicity. But if you are really correct, and oftentimes you aren't, but you say something enough that people believe you are, that, by the way, that's a political tactic. I won't say any more than that. So so you know, where does that leave us then? Does that mean that nobody really is going to care, in the sense that we'll just go on because the trading card game is just such a small piece? Pokemon just prints the cardboard. It's cheap to print the cardboard. They throw it in some booster or blister packs, and whoever buys it keeps it going for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
I mean, you have to think the one big thing that the card game has over the video game, even if overall it's a small part of it, is no one is buying the video game 25 times. They're going to keep buying the same set of cards. You don't need as big an audience to make the same money from the card game, because people will keep buying the same product over and over again. But I think as long as there is the successful video game market, there will always be people buying the cards, just because it's the video games that get kids into Pokemon, or it's the TV show. The cards very rarely get kids into Pokemon. It's something else that gets them into Pokemon, and then they buy the cards because, oh, I want a card of my favorite Pokemon.
Can we see a situation where ultimately these the value piece? So everybody right now, I talked about all the influencers beating each other up because things are so high, the prices are so high, you're not necessarily buying it something at a good price or a good value, and so it may not be a good investment. Can we get back to a time in this hobby where actual collectors will collect for collecting purposes alone and not for investment? Or is it so prevalent that every parent and every child is looking at this and saying, we shouldn't be buying this? I mean, this isn't a good investment now. Or they actually think, well, it's buying at $250 a box for Journey Together, so certainly it's going to go to $400. Can that influence of the day-to-day drama and media sensationalism be put aside enough for people to get back to doing what, you know, those of us that have been doing it for 20 years, 25 years did, when we didn't actually care about value?
I would love it if it did, but no. The drama side, the starting fights, is too big. It's what people want. We've said before, you know, one of the reasons that we're not as big as a lot of people is that people just don't want objective, factual content. They want the drama, they want the hype. And I think that's just too big. It probably won't be the same people, you know, people who will get burnt out on this kind of thing eventually, and they'll move on, but there'll be 10 other people waiting to take their place. But on that point where you keep talking about us getting more views and stuff, like, obviously, yes, I would love if we were getting more views on this. I think a lot of it is just trying to get more eyes on this. I definitely think there are more people out there who will enjoy our content than are currently watching it. But we're never going to get the views of these drama channels, because the drama channels can reach anyone. You know, we reach collectors. That's the way it is. We can only speak to collectors. The drama channels, they don't even need to reach anyone who cares about Pokemon. There are people who don't care about Pokemon but will watch a video about a fight in Walmart. It is what it is. So overall, we're never going to have the view levels of those drama channels. We're never going to have the view levels of the people who just open packs and, they appeal to the younger kids. They're screaming and like throwing up flashy graphics every time they open a $2 card. We're never going to be that. But I will say now I'm okay with that. I definitely would love it if we could grow, but I want to make content that I'm proud of, and I'm proud of what we're doing here. I'm proud of this podcast. I'm proud of the information videos that I make on the channel. I'm always trying to improve the video quality. I'm never going to be satisfied saying like, oh, I'm at my peak. I'm always trying to improve. My news videos, I think I've had a great idea there where I'm making these news videos every 2 weeks to keep people up to date. That's what I want to be. I mean, literally, so much of the media I personally consume, the comedians that I watch, the music I listen to, a lot of the films I watch, they're never going to be as big as a lot of people out there. Like, we talked the other day, because I was wearing my Tiger Lilies t-shirt on one of these videos, and someone commented about it, asking, I said, it's a British band called the Tiger Lilies. They're never going to, sell out a stadium like Taylor Swift does. That's not their style, but they're making music that they're proud of. Like, I'm not saying Taylor Swift is, and I'm sure Taylor Swift is proud of her music, but she's making music that will reach the style of music she's doing is going to reach a bigger audience than the style of music the Tiger Lilies do. But they can both be proud of their music, and the Tiger Lilies, they've been going since the 80s. They're not going to change to just try and get that audience. They're going to try and bring in an audience that likes what they're doing. Same, I've talked a lot about a comedian I love called Ian Boldsworth. He's actually the artist who included some freebie stuff that I talked about earlier, because I was buying some art from him. He's an artist as well as a comedian. He does stuff that he wants to do. His entire body of work now is just on Patreon. There's very, very little of it actually goes public, because he's curated this fan base over the years where he's saying like, okay, I'm making the art that I want to make, and I want to bring in people who enjoy that art. And again, that's where I want to be. I always hate it. People give it a bad time when you say like, oh, I don't want something going mainstream that I like. And they're like, oh, it's hipster of you. You want it to be underground. And it's a lot of it is. And when people say that, what they actually mean is, I don't want this thing that I like to be toned down or to change to make everyone else like it, because they want it to remain what it is. Like talking about the Tiger Lilies or Ian Boldsworth's podcast and stuff. I would love it if everyone in the world liked the Tiger Lilies. I would love it if the Tiger Lilies were selling out stadiums doing the music that they did now. I would not like it if they started changing their music, sanitizing it a bit more, making it more mainstream friendly in order to sell at the stadiums. That's what it is. And that's how I view everything that I'm doing, is that I want to make content that I want to make. I want to make videos that I'm proud of, and I just want to try and reach the audience that will enjoy what I'm doing, and not try and make my videos for people that don't enjoy what I'm doing. Obviously with YouTube, there's a little bit of playing the game. There's a little bit of thumbnails. There's a little bit of titles to try and just push your videos out towards people. But that's more about getting eyes on it, getting people to actually watch it for the first time. And then the people who do like what you're making will stay and will continue with you. But that's my opinion on that. That's how I want to always go forward. I would rather be just scraping by, but have a very nice core audience who really like what I do, than go out and start screaming and calling out drama and stuff all the time. It's just not me.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I was talking about that concert I went to last night, and his daughter that was there, and he's 84, she's 32 or something, and her voice was one of the best voices I've ever heard in the world. And I thought, my wife and I thought to ourselves, how can she not be an absolute huge performer, an American Idol, The Voice, etc. And she's there, I know, for the exact reasons you just said. She's proud of the work they put out. She's enjoying working with her dad. And she's enjoying putting out something that makes her proud and gets her that chance to be a star. So when you say all this, it reminds me, this is the reason I asked the question of you. I asked the question because I want to get talked off the ledge. I'm on the ledge, and I'm a competitive guy, a very competitive guy. So, that's, you just don't achieve success unless you're driven by something. And of course, you can redefine success to whatever that's going to be. But if I'm defining myself, the numbers are how you end up being a sales guy and how you end up having $300 million, $350 million under management as a financial advisor. You grow and you grow and you grow. So when I think about, growth, is it about numbers for me, or is it really more about the audience and the people that we want to talk to? And so I appreciate your perspective. I think it's important. I think it's really important. And the reason I ask you the question, so I can try to analyze and be reflective about where this hobby is going. And if this hobby is, if there's really no middle ground, let's say there's no one's going to really be doing these middle sets, and the new players are going to be, people are going to collect just singles or whatever, are we still relevant in trying to produce and talk to an audience that benefits from what we say? And I think the answer to that can really be yes. And I have to appreciate that. And I have to understand the level of work we go to for any given set to try to find every single card of whatever type it is, different strategies that we employ in the process, different connections that we make, different ways that we might get a better deal on something than something else, how we go about finding all of that information, and the exact activities we take on day to day to actually then put it in a situation that culminates in our success on what we're doing. And if it is going to be the case that even if new collectors come in and they start to try to create a master set or a full set or a complete set or whatever it is going forward, then I have to realize that we also have advice and wisdom to offer them for when they're doing that. And maybe that isn't today. Maybe, like you said, that isn't exactly today because they're caught up in the hype and the cost and they're not able to do that as much. But maybe there is a day when things settle down, production is sufficient, the scalpers are gone, things are more reasonably priced, and people get a chance to go back to those kind of collecting ways that we all started at years ago. And when I think about the sets, when you go to, you'll often go out to eBay these days and you'll see a run of sets by one seller. And it depends on if there's a run or not, depends on the cost they're selling them for and whether or not some have been sold already. But you'll see those first 7, 8 sets from vintage, right? And everybody had them. It wasn't even an issue. You collected one, you kept right on going, you collected the cards. It might have been less expensive. Maybe the distribution was better. Maybe there wasn't so many hit cards, but you saw people who were interested in beginning at a point and continuing that journey on forward. And right now, the schism, the sporadic nature, the frenetic nature of how everybody's doing something different in the hobby really doesn't lend itself to what we are talking about. And I want to have a hopefulness that at some point people will tune in and we stick to our guns. And I put aside the idea of needing to comment on the rest of the hobby. We do go essentially a little bit underground in our focus, in our tunnel vision, and we keep laying out information, and then people tell each other and tell others about us because we aren't into the clickbait. It's not a big deal for us, and we know what it means. But ultimately, as I know from life in my business, you don't need every single person that views you to refer you. Any person that comes into my financial advisory business, any client family, they don't all have to be referral, sources. All it takes is 1 or 2 that really believe in what you're doing and see what a great job, and they have that willingness and tendency to refer, to tell others, and then our audience should grow, and we can continue to put the product out there that we continue to be proud of.
Yeah, and there's a big thing where there has been a lot of talk lately amongst not just people in Pokemon, but people in video creation as a whole, is that what they call evergreen content is fading so much. Evergreen content is content where people can go back and watch it at any time. These videos that people do where it's this happened this week and this was a fight at Target, blah blah. That's getting a ton of views in the first 48 hours that it's up, and then no one cares anymore. No one's ever going back to it. I've got videos on my channel from 10 years ago, 13 years ago, that are still getting views. Not a lot, but they're still getting views because the information is still relevant. And that's another thing I'm proud of, is that I'm making sure the information's out there. Maybe, if I make an information video now, say, let's say I just picked a set, or I picked some older promo cards, and I made a video, and I said, this is a short video, this is what these are. It's not going to get a ton of views in the first 48 hours, but it'll get some. But then maybe in a week's time, someone needs to know about that card. My video's there. Maybe in a month's time, maybe in a year's time, maybe in a decade's time, someone needs to know about that card. I did a series years ago that I called, it was Cards Every Day in April. I just did 30 short videos throughout April. I showed off a couple of promo cards. I get comments on those still. This is what, 2020, I think I did it maybe. They don't get tons of new views, but they still get new views because every day someone is coming into something, they're looking at a card, they're going, I don't know what this is. Where can I find out about it? And my video's still there. It's still relevant, it's still factual information. I'm happy with that. You know, there's a lot of talk around creators and stuff too, and about legacy. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? And there's so much of it of people say, "Oh, what do you want to be remembered for?" And these people who are doing all this super clickbaity stuff, all of these drama videos, all of this infighting, if they stopped making videos tomorrow, they never make another video, they're going to be forgotten in a week. No one's going to be going, oh, we need this person back. There's 20 other channels doing the same thing. They'll move on straight away. People still go back to my stuff. Even when I took breaks in YouTube for a long time, my old stuff was still getting views. When I came back, people are enjoying what we're doing. And that, to me, I would rather a video help 100 people than be seen by 1,000.
Yeah, it's great. It's great perspective, and you're very down to earth, and so I think that's good. And I hope if we stick to what the focus is, then it grow for the people that really enjoy and benefit and feel like they get something from it. So, and speaking of previous content that's out there that you're very proud of, I'm not proud of anything I previously put out there, but I'd like to put a commercial out there that says that I did put some content out there. I'm actually kind of proud of it. It wasn't too bad at all. I had some funny stuff. So I don't know how to find it. I think you just go to YouTube and type in David Person Pokemon, and maybe you'll find some of my
I think there's
videos.
a link in the video description.
Okay, Dan's going to put a link in there because you guys that are less than 40 years old know what a link is and how to click on it, and actually takes you somewhere. Every time I click a link, I find it packs my car and drives me off an edge of the cliff somewhere. So,
I mean, this is a big thing. I will say, it's when you do message me a lot about numbers, and as I've tried to tell you, in terms of this channel actually growing, the most important number is one that you can't see, because the most important number is watch time. Like, you can see my subscriber count, you can see the view count on the videos, you can't see the behind the scenes actual watch time of the video. And it's like I said, you talked about the hour-long Journey Together opening video which was one that I promoted, and that one, you said, oh, it's got 1,000 views, and I said, yeah, but that hour-long video with 1,000 views has less actual watch time than our 30-minute video with 300 views. Because those videos are good for getting out there to people. It gets people introduced to your channel. I got a ton of subscribers from promoting that, which is great. But this is the stuff that people are actually watching. People who are watching these are watching them through. And that's great. And obviously, numbers is a great metric to look at. Subscriber count's a good metric to look at to see how you're improving. But I think we're improving with these. I think we're reaching a good audience. And people have noticed starting yesterday's episode, me and Law sat for a few hours last night. We basically just revamped a lot of the overlays. We revamped how a lot of the things looked. I think it looks a lot nicer. It has, Law came up with the idea of, because it's Coffee Talks, a wooden table design. If people can't really tell on the overlay, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a wooden coffee table. So I'm always going to keep trying to improve this stuff as well. And I'm open to suggestions on how we do that. But I think the overlay especially looks a lot nicer now than it did. But that's where we're at. We've gone pretty long. I think
Dan,
we're getting ready to wrap up.
I have one question, because I just curious on a technical question. Do you know if I don't do this, guys? So please, when I ask Dan the question, don't go and start doing it, because it's just wrong. It's wrong, and it's taking shortcuts. If you guys can't take a full cut instead of a shortcut, then who the heck do you think you are? Dan, if you watch a video at 1.25 or 1.5 speed or something, does the poster of that video still get credit for a full video watch, or does it because it shortens it up in the time you're actually watching, does it count as shorter watch time?
I think it counts as the full watch time. Like, I think if you watch it on 2 times speed, it still counts as the full length of the video because it's the length of the content. I think so anyway. I don't know. I'm not in enough with YouTube to be able to ask that question, but I believe so.
Okay. Well, if somebody does know and let us know for sure. But
But
anyways,
if people need, either way, if people need to watch on 2 times speed, if that's what, if lets them watch more content, then fine. Even if it only counts for half watch time, like,
yes,
do what you need to do. Yeah.
Okay, I understand, but the point, Dan, is you talk slow enough that they can watch 2 times. I talk so fast, it's not even worth it. If you're watching 2 times, you have no interest in us anyway, so don't ever phone us up again. Listen, I took Dan completely off track today. We were going to talk about variants and other things, but I needed to settle in on my view of all this and the time and effort that we put in.
Yeah.
And we have so much to talk about with respect to collecting, and I think I can give suggestions, and Dan gives suggestions. Mine will be more aligned. Dan's are more aligned with the information side, but mine will be aligned with maybe some good strategies you guys can do if you're interested in collecting and you haven't been able to put together some of these mid-era sets that I can find things for you guys to try to have you look and negotiate with sellers and try to find things for yourselves that years from now you'll be happy you own, because right now the focus isn't on it. So try to find value in other things in the information we bring in whatever way that we can. But I appreciate the dialogue today, Dan, and I appreciate you guys that are watching us letting me get through this and process as a human being and trying to figure out how, just like Dan said, always trying to make it better, always trying to improve. But those of you that are kind enough to comment and say, look, so glad to have you guys back. We really appreciate what you put out there. It means a lot, and it keeps me feeling supported in the endeavor so that we continue to want to come back and do it again. So thank you for that.
And even though Dave got us way off track today by insisting this was what we had to talk about, I promise that tomorrow I'll tell you about that Vulpix I mentioned yesterday.
Dan always keeps his promises unless he doesn't. And if you don't view, you won't find out. So make sure to view in tomorrow so you can see if he's actually a man of his word or just a total pathological liar. Great to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, with music by More Than Never and artwork by Lore Norton. A special thanks to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to.